Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In this today's session, we're going to talk about HTML lists, continuing from previous episodes. Previously, we have been talking about HTML, and now we're going to move and talk more about HTML lists. Okay, and then after that, we'll try to do some more examples of how HTML is working before we continue other aspects of it. So let's just begin with it. And if you have been following me and you have been learning HTML with me, don't forget to kindly do subscribe, because as I said, we will be posting complete courses in this channel very soon, from HTML, CSS, JS to all other components using the With You School website and many other references as well. So it will be very fun learning coding with this. So let's begin. Now, what are lists? So as it says, HTML list allows web developers to group a set of related items in a particular list. For example, these are two ways of doing it. Each is known as unordered list and this is known as ordered list. Basically, list is like items that belong to a particular heading. So they become a subcomponents of a particular heading. This is what basically it means. And then the way we do it is we have a full dotted, which is known as unordered. So you don't know which is the sequence. You just see this is first, the second, third, fourth. Then they typically don't have numbering with it. But when you do give a numbering to it, it basically becomes an ordered list. So the only difference is the points that we give here. So instead of just giving a dot, a bullet point as we call it, we give it a number or an alphabet or a Roman character, whatever we want to give. Okay, how do we execute this? Let's execute this code. And as you can see within this is that if I come here, we have something called document type. HTML and body is defined. Inside each body, we have written the basic code. Okay, so this is the body area which is visible to the user. Inside the body area, first we have written h2. H2 basically means heading. So this heading is here. As I said, each list typically is a subcomponent, subtext of a heading. Usually that's the big case. So in this case, we have given an unordered HTML list, and then we have said unordered. The way we write it is we write an unordered list, which is a UL tag, and closing a UL tag. Okay, so this becomes one body. Inside UL tag, we provide each of these elements. Okay, so list item basically is there, which is first list item. Then we have tea as a second list item. Then milk as a third list item. This is similar to what we discussed in tables as well. So in the tables, for each cell item, we give the same tag. Okay, so here basically we use the list item tag. In HTML, we have been using the td row data tag. Okay, so if you need to create unordered list, this time instead of ul, we write ol, as the name basically implies. So ul for unordered list and ol for ordered list. Rest li are exactly same. Okay, so these component matters not. These are exactly same. They're supposed to be list items within each list item, and you can add as many as you like. As long as you write ol, it becomes ordered, means when they're numbered, and unordered means basically it will have a bullet points or any other symbol that you want. That's the only key difference with it. Okay, so unordered list starts with a ul tag. Each tag list item starts with li tag. So each list item starts with li, and the main tag starts with ul. That's how it basically goes. Ordered list, at the other hand, uses ol, and then again using the same li tag. So internally, list items are typically the same. The only difference is ol and ul, depending on what type of list you want. Okay, so that's the only difference that we keep in mind. Then we have something called description list. So also supports HTML also supports the description list. A description list is a list term with a description of each term. Okay, so what basically it means that we define a DL, which is basically description list, and then within description list we have DT, which for example can be anything, and inside DT we have another description. So it's like a list within a list. Okay, a nested kind of a list. So let me show you how simple it is. So if you can see this output here, so we have a main heading. Inside the heading, we have list 1, list 2, and these can be items. Inside each item, we have another sub list. So this basically becomes a list inside a list, or a subheading before a list item, as you can consider. So in order to do that, we use the DL, okay, the DL tag. And inside the DL tag, then we provide the DT tag, which becomes this heading. Okay, and then we define the DD tag, which becomes the sub content inside this thing. So this basically how we represent it. So DT represents the main subheading, coffee or milk. Inside DT, instead of list item li tag, we use the DD tag, which basically creates this sub list item here. If you don't want to use this dash here, remember this dash currently is just used as a text here manually. Okay, so I can just run this code and you will find that we have a list and then it has a subtext to there. So again, just for structuring content, that's how HTML works, remember. So the key aspect of HTML is that we use the structuring of content, and this is how we do it. So the DL tag defines the description list. So this DL use the description list. DT tag defines the term name. Okay, so DT defines the name, and the DD tag describes each item within that. So this is the description tags. Most commonly, you would find if you look in the websites, the most common tag are unordered list and ordered list. These are like 99% you would try to use them as much as you can. However, at certain issues, you might just need to use this as well. Okay, unordered description list. This is more like an hidden unused tag if you come to it. Okay, so anyway, this is all about lists that we can say. That's it. This is basic idea within it. So if I go back inside in more detail with an unordered list now, so if you click on this link, you can find that we have unordered list. Within this unordered list, we have again the same UL and list items, but there are various styles now. So for example, if I need to change the style of this list item, which by default gives me this what we call bullet point. Okay, if I want to change that, we can use the list style type CSS attribute. Okay, so if I come here and I provide UL as a list unordered list, and then use inline CSS called style, okay, is equals to, and then use a property list style type colon disk. So what it does is it will create this blank disk for us. So this is basically simple dot or bullet point or a disk as we call it. If you want to change that, you can use a circle, you can use a square, you can use none. Then there will be no list item. So the description tag basically, in other words, you can simplicity use this none and there's no tag behind it. This previous tag that we talk about. So you can change this to here. So if I come and write this, execute this code. So as you can see, we have a disk available, but you can change the style to, for example, setting it to be, hey, let's just move it to none. And if I execute the code, see this, there's no list item here. So you can use this as well, and you can remove the bullet points within this thing. Then moving on forward, you can use, for example, square. So if you, for the reason you want to change the style, you can come here and you can say, hey, let's just use SQUARE square. Oops, square. And if I execute it, so now instead of bullet points or round disks, we get squares. So you can change the styles to a certain point as well. So you can use a circle, you can use a square, you can use none, and it will basically create none lists. Okay. Similarly, you can obviously use a nested list as well. So a nested list basically means a list within a list. So I can have a coffee, I can have a tea, and then within tea, I can have another sub list as well. To do that, basically the process is exactly the same. Wherever we need a list, we have to use something called unordered list and then list items. That's it. So if T is supposed to be an item or a list indicating certain behavior, then in order to use it, I can just simply say, hey, this is my list item. And then inside this list item, I can have a separate list item. So let me just zoom into it. Okay, here we go. So we have a T. T is basically main item. So within this, I need a sub item. So I again use the same UL list item, list item, list item. So for example, if I have milk and I need a list, another list be underneath the milk, so I can come here and I can say, hey, let's create another list item inside the here, and then we can say list item. For example, cow milk. Okay, backslash li, and then I can say, hey, let's have and one more item to it. For example, GOAT goat milk, and then we can say backslash li. Okay, and then we can close this ul tag. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Now what would happen at this point if I execute this course? Now do remember, we have done two things. We have added another list underneath this list item, and then we have created this milk, and this milk closes here. Remember, the closing tags in HTML do make a great emphasis. If you look at the previous example, we have list item T, but there is no closing tag in front of it because the closing tag is somewhere, oops, the closing tag is somewhere around here. Okay, li, and then inside the T there is a list item. That's what the nested tag means. So inside a tag we have another list, and that's why it is giving us this effect. At this point, I have already closed the milk item. What will happen now? So if I execute it, we get this effect here. Okay, we get this nested effect. But this basically means that this is another list inside this main list. Okay, So this is typically not nested under milk. So the best practice or the best way we do it is that we delete this ul, and then to make it a properly part of this milk, see, we close this li tag outside. So now list starts here, has another list inside it, and then the list closes. That's how nested list works. So if we execute it, we get a proper behavior within it. Okay, so it might look just same because it's still creating nested list, but now it knows that this nested list actually belongs to the milk. So inside milk we have a next tag. Okay, so as simple as that. So in nested again means something inside something. So a box inside a box is basically what nested means. To do that, we basically use this nested items. Then similarly we have ordered list. If you create an order list, again same thing, but order we can change the style with it. So that's the key aspect that we need to understand. Again, in order we have an attribute called type. This time we are not using css, but we are using something called type because it is more evidently a number. So we're just saying, hey, order list type 1, list item, list item, list item, list item. So type 1 will basically mean that this is a default number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I need to change it to a, I just say, hey, type is equals to a. So if I execute this code, you will find now instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have ABC available. So we can easily change the numbers from type A to small letters. If I use a small letter, so now it will basically say, hey, type is going to be not a capital letter, but a small letter. And if we execute it, we get a small letters here. So this is as easy as it goes. You can use I for a Roman number. So if I come back here and instead of type A, we say, hey, let me just use I, click on here. So we get a Roman 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, and then it says, listen, the same disk you can use a smaller lowercase I. So instead of capital letters 1, 2, 3, 4, you can, if you just use type to be a smaller I and execute this code, now you'll get a smaller letters. So you can very easily modify and change this list as well. Control list counting. By default, an ordered list will start from 1. If you want to start counting a specific number, you can use a start attribute. So if you don't want to show number from 1, by default, you can always set it to start 50. So this basically means that if I come here and if I have a number, for example, let me just use make it sense in terms of 1, always starts at 1. Okay, it's not because we have written 1 here, it's just 1 is type. Every list we use here will by default always start from 1 or a similar. But if you use the start attribute, okay, so we say start is equals to bracket start bracket close, and for example 10. So what this will basically mean that now the list starts from 10 instead of starting 1. You can change the starting number with the ordered list as well. Similarly, the nested list works in the same manner as an normal previously as we talked about. Okay, so the two main thing that we need to worry about is type attribute and the start attribute within HTML lists. Okay, so I hope you understand this, and then next we will talk more about uh, inline and block examples. But before that, I want to do an example as well. So hopefully see you next session.